Hi, everybody. You are listening to Judging Meghan with I'm so excited. Okay. It's been like a rough go lately doing podcasts and with everything in the world. So I really wanted to talk about I want to talk to a past guest that I don't always have past guests on unless I love them. And I love this lady. She's awesome. I'm like a super fan of her, actually. Love her book. Love her products. So we're going to talk about all of that, but also just to the world is so heavy right now. So let's talk about something happy, which is my own weight loss. Okay. I'm going to talk about me and it's all about me today. You can just be my sidekick. And I'm doing it.
We've all been put here for a reason and we all deserve acceptance.
Judging Meghan with Meghan Judge.
I'm a trauma survivor from a really young age, and I have been diagnosed with complex PTSD in the past few years. I've been surrounded by death and abuse much of my life. I've been dragged through the mud and have been to the point of not wanting to go on anymore. Through my interviews with other survivors, I've learned that there is a way out. From recovering to surviving and thriving, we all have the strength to come out the other side.
You are listening to Judging Meghan.
I want to introduce Dr. Alexandra Sowa. I almost butchered your name and we're like old friends because I can't ever do an intro correctly. What do I call you? I forget what I called you last time.
Just call me Alexandra.
Alexandra.
My name.
Okay, because sometimes when I have doctors on, they're like, call me doctor, whatever. And I just feel like we're old friends now. We've been in touch now for, I think the original time you were on was how long? Like 6 months ago?
Yeah, my book came out about 6-7 months ago already. So it was right around then. Yeah.
Okay. And you are a doctor. So you're an obesity doctor, correct?
I am. Yep. I'm an internal medicine. Yeah. So internal medicine, primary training. And then I have additional training beyond that as an obesity medicine specialist.
Okay. And you have a product line called SoWell, which I'm going to hold them up because I actually use these products. I love these products.
Thank you.
There's a couple products that I use of guests that I've had on. Not a lot though. I truly believe in these. So if you're watching on YouTube, we're going to get into what these products are, why we use them. But I wanted to talk to you today because when you were on about 6 months ago, I had gone off of the GLP-1s. I've been on every single one of them. So listeners, if you have questions, I am not a doctor, but I will point you in the direction of Alexandra, Dr. Alexandra, or I will I'm happy to answer questions, but I am no doctor. So I want to make that clear. I have lost 40 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I want to stand up and do a little spin, audience. But this is over 3 years. I think I'm actually up. I think it's 38 as of today because I had to go off of them for 2 weeks. And we're going to talk about that because I had my colonoscopy.
Mm-hmm. Good job.
Which is so important. Everyone, please do it. And you can't take them for a week prior. And then I just took an additional week off. Okay. So that's a mouthful. Welcome.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be
excited.
Here.
I'm so excited to have you on and talk all things GLP-1s and your book, Ozempic Revolution, which I don't think I said, but I've read it front to back. I also I take it out and I turn to it as kind of a little guide if I need it. So I highly recommend for the audience to just get the book. You can get it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, anywhere that you can find a book, right?
Yep. Anywhere you can buy a book, and there is an audio version in my voice. So if you like the sound of my voice today, people have really been enjoying that because this sort of information in this book is one that you do have to revisit and one that maybe you put in your ears when you're going for your walk or you're just chopping veggies in the kitchen. It's just nice to come back to certain chapters.
Okay. So let's kind of revisit our original episode, which was when I first had you on, I had been off the drugs. I was going back on them. We talked about, and listeners, you can go back to her original episode. We talked about how I was using the drugs incorrectly. So I was microdosing them. And then I started getting freaked out all the time. Like, oh, I don't want to do the shot on shot day. I know I'm going to feel like poo, you know, and you get in your head because the news and all the stories of like horror stories, listeners. I've had so many listeners reach out to me and they either listen to your episode or they've reached out to me or they've read your book and they've said, okay, like I'm going to give this a shot.
That's
so
awesome.
I would love your perspective on the fear-based, like why people go on them and then they go, oh my God, what am I doing? And they go off them and they use them incorrectly. So let's start there.
Okay. So just to back up a little bit. So I'm an obesity medicine doctor. I was one of the first in the country. I started doing this right out of my training. I've been doing it exclusively for 10 years. I was doing it, standing on a soapbox, yelling it like out into a void, being like, guys, weight isn't about willpower. It's biology. And we now have medications to really help you fix your biology, just like we do with other disease states. And everyone thought I was crazy, I think, for a long time, up until about, I'd say 2 years ago. It was an intersection of the weekly shot being released for weight loss and content creators being really open with their journey. And then the world just started to become interested. With that interest, the fear-mongering headlines took over. And really, I think it's rooted in weight bias, where headlines are like, wait, we want to feel like there's some moral superiority to thinness. And so now we're going to scare you because now there's something that levels the playing field. And so as my career started just helping patients one-on-one, and then it evolved. And you were so kind to kind of like tell everyone about all the things I do. But I wrote a book that was released with HarperCollins this past year. It was really important for me to write this. I wrote it right after I had my fourth kid. So it was so chaotic, but I was like, this needs to be out in the world because people need to not be afraid. And I want them to be well informed. On the flip side of not being afraid is just using this medication incorrectly and kind of treating it without the respect that it deserves and not looking at the full picture of your health and really taking care of yourself. So I wrote this book. It is a deep dive into the science of weight gain, into how these drugs work. It goes through all of the kind of facts and myths, and then it sets you up for success. And then with that too, I also released a whole line of products called SoWell, and it's for GLP-1 users. So if you're looking on YouTube, you can see on that package, like it literally says for GLP-1 users. And the reason I created these products was because in my own practice, people suffered with a lot of side effects. And I knew that science told us that they needed specific things to help them not just survive on these meds, but to thrive and to feel well. And I don't want anyone suffering in the name of weight loss. And so we created these products. We were kind of first to market just being for GLP-1 users. And now we have a lot of big brands kind of nipping at our heels. But it was really important for me to create a whole ecosystem. And so I'm out in the world doing podcasts, on panels, on social. It's so much work. But I really feel like you need to have a voice of science and reason. So that's why I'm here. So thank you for having me back. When we talk about these drugs, as I kind of already touched on, there's so much fear, and that fear comes from the outside world, from society, but it comes within our own doctors' offices. So a lot of patients, the fear is corroborated by doctors who just don't know better. In medicine, it takes 17 years for something we know to be fact to really make its way mainstream. And GLP-1s have been used for weight loss for about 11 years now. So we're like halfway to getting people to really understand their benefits. And then I think they're our own worst enemies. And then you already told us this. It's your own
I'm guilty.
brain.
Go ahead.
Your own brain.
Throw me under the bus.
Right? Yeah. It's just like we are our own worst critics. And even if you would tell your best friend, hey, the science is there, this isn't your fault. We all think that we should be doing this better or without meds, or we're cheating. Something bad's going to happen. And I'm really here to kind of help people break down that stigma, because these medications help us be a lot healthier when we're using them correctly. And they're going to make a really big impact on our chronic health picture and longevity. Just last week, another study came out that showed there was a 34% risk of developing dementia just within a 5-year period when on these drugs. That's insane.
It's huge. It's huge. Let me just back up for 1 second. There is a big brand that's competing with you, and I'm not going to lie. I've tried it. Because I feel like I want my listeners and people that come on the podcast to know I'm not like paid, like I'm not being paid, although I do have a link. So I'll be honest, like, you know, like eventually I will, but I do it because I want to, like, I started this podcast to help other people. That's why I do it. And I think you're like me because we talked about it in the last podcast, genetically, right? I joke all the time. I have like, even though I'm not German, but I joke that I have like the German factory worker gene in my family somewhere, like saying like I'm chubby and like husky and like whatever. And I'm fine. I'm curvy, right? I'm never going to be a stick figure, but I gained so much weight in COVID and I was so depressed. And I think there's a lot of women out there that are listening. I'm very open with my hormonal journey where I was forced to get a hysterectomy last year because I almost bled to death because of fibroids. And so my hormones were like up and down. Plus I was drinking like in COVID, like 2 bottles a day. Like everyone was just like pounding wine and I was depressed and I put on all this weight and I found myself so depressed. Like I would just wear like muumuus all the time, couldn't wear belts. Like I was like not belting stuff anymore. And I'm just going to tell listeners out there that I'm not trying to do these episodes to be like, you have to weigh like 100 pounds or 110 pounds. I'm still a curvy lady. I'm like probably 10 pounds away from my goal. I just want to be healthy. I'm like you because I follow you too. And I know that the message behind this for listeners is like, let's get healthy. Like, let's feel good about ourselves. Let's be able to like, you know, wear our belts again and tuck in our shirts. Cause it's honestly, I hated, like I'm a mom. I've had 2 kids, like our stomachs change. And just to feel like genuinely good in my skin again gives me like confidence to be like, I'm getting older, I'm aging, like I do Botox, I do all these things, and I'm just not going to lie about it. And so I think the problem with these drugs is a combination of shaming us, right? I mean, how many times do you go on, I send you stuff, actually, I sent you something the other day, where we're shamed because, oh, why don't you just go to the gym? Well, guess what, honey? I do go to the gym, and I even went to the gym when I was 40 pounds heavier. But you get to a certain point where genetically, a lot of times women, your gene pool comes into account, and you could carry a gene to be overweight when you get older. It's just a fact. So I would love for you to talk about that.
Yeah, I have to go back. That was great what you sent me. And I definitely need to stitch that because it was just so uneducated. This idea that you can go to the gym and just work harder. That is this culture of no pain, no gain, calories in, calories out. It has totally been debunked. Weight is very complicated, and weight really is our hormones that talk from our brain to our gut and to our fat cells. They become dysregulated. And some of us are set up for that dysregulation from birth. Some of us develop that resistance over time, and it's really genetic. Prior to the rise of ultra-processed food and the world in which we live, we still had about 13% of the population that met obesity criteria. That was my family. We were joking about German descent. I'm a Polish, like, we must have been in the field.
We must have been like in the factories together. I knew you.
Yes, exactly. With our nice round cheeks and our blondish hair. Yeah. And so that exists. And we also know genetics are very, very strong. So there's fascinating twin studies where actually if you separate twins and put them in totally different environments, they'll end up having the same weight. It's so interesting. Then the thing that's happened in our modern world is that we have this layer on top of genes. So even though these genes were being expressed and you can't really change them within 1 generation, 2 generations, the way that the genes express have changed because we're exposed to so much, for lack of a better word, just crap from what's in our air, our entertainment, like honestly, the fact that we all just sit down all the times watching our phones, the way that our work is set up, the way that our cities, they're not made for biking or walking safely, and our food. And so the exposure, even if you're not doing all of these things in abundance and you're trying your best, like our environment is really setting us up for failure right now. And I'm a big believer in that we have to get to the root cause of prevention, but we can't ask individuals to take that on. Like you can't solve this modern crisis just one-on-one. And there's a whole industry that's collapsing right now. Believe you me, I'm talking to the big gyms. They want me on to like figure out how to help them talk to their user base, because a lot of people for a long time bought into this idea that if you just exercise harder, the weight will come off. And that's just not what science shows us. Exercise is so important for mental health and cardiovascular health. Strength training is important for your muscles. But that idea of like go kill yourself at a gym on a bike and sweat, it actually doesn't usually lead to weight loss for the vast majority of people.
Can I just piggyback on that? Because I think I said it the last episode. I'm guilty of doing double soul cycles. Like a few years ago. And I did not lose 1 pound. And I walk every day. I walk like 4 miles a day. You have to do strength training on these drugs. It's super important. Yeah. We can talk about that. But if you are killing yourself and like I'm just going to say a lot for me, it was hormones. So it kills me when women are shamed to be like, and people are judgmental. They send me stuff like when I talk about this, because I've done a couple episodes and they're like, most people aren't mean that follow me, thank God, but I do get a few, and I'm like, block, I don't care. No. But people need to understand that like my life has changed for the better from these drugs. And it's also my blood work has improved, which is huge. So cholesterol, like as you get older, it's genetic. Like we talked about genetics. My cholesterol was like, I always had the LDL and the HDL, and one of the bad one was always high. And then I lowered my number, and my blood, like I have to go back and get my blood work done. But there's so many benefits. We talked about the Alzheimer's study. We talk about the last episode, the addiction piece of it. So like I'm a drinker. I love wine. Something about this medication makes it so you're just like, like I might have a glass, but then I'm like, I don't really feel like a second glass, and that's like all of these things I think are so important. So can you kind of touch on that again?
Yeah. So just quickly, this drug mimics a hormone that we naturally make in our body, but the natural version lasts only a few seconds and it becomes kind of immune to the signal as we age and put on weight. And so the synthetic version of this drug, it lasts for weeks. It's very, very long acting, and it's very powerful because we have receptors for GLP-1 all over the body. And that's why we see such incredible benefits from this drug, not just decreased calories. So we see decreased inflammation, both internally within our blood vessels. There's like remodeling of our own blood vessels. We see improved kidney function. We see decreased rates of heart disease, decreased rates of stroke. It works directly on the pancreas, so our blood sugar is more stable. Blood sugar being lower and more stable leads to reduced inflammation. Inflammation, in turn, is what leads to the majority of chronic disease in this country. So cancers, dementia, all of the kind of breakdown of our organs. I just put up a post today on Instagram and people were chiming in. We are seeing decreased rates of Crohn's disease, all of the bowel diseases, IBD will go into remission. Psoriasis, diseases of inflammation, autoimmune diseases. And we're just like at the tip of the iceberg. I'm not going to say I can promise I can cure you, but what we're starting to see is most of disease is a byproduct of inflammation. And this drug works very well on anti-inflammatory cascades. And so the primary FDA approved benefit right now is type 2 diabetes, weight loss. We've got an approval for sleep apnea. We've got approval for heart disease, secondary prevention, and we have a few more coming on. But the benefit far goes beyond what the FDA is even approving it for.
I mean, it's almost like you listen and you're like, this is a miracle drug. It's weird, but I'm telling you, I've been on it for 3 years. I think over 3 years. I've taken breaks. I've tried. So I'm going to talk about the different categories and then chime in because I'm a big mouth. So there's the GLP-1s, the semaglutides did I say that right? Semaglutide?
Yeah. Some people say it that way. And then I say it's semaglutide, but yeah.
Semaglutide. And then the trizepatide. Okay. Yep. So the two different categories. I've done both. I've done, Wegovy. I've done Mounjaro. I've done the compounded, and now I'm on Zepbound. And I'm happy to talk about the different ones and my experience. So it's very straightforward.
So now the two biggest drugs on the market we have the Ozempic, which is Wegovy, semaglutide, just one hormone, GLP-1. And then Zepbound or tirzepatide or Mounjaro, and all the different names. That is two agonist hormones. So we've got GLP-1 plus GIP. In the next few years, there are going to be a lot more entrants to market that have slightly different combinations. GLP-1 is going to be at the core of most because it is the most powerful. And then we're adding on these other hormones that we've identified that have a role in fat storage, fat burning, really metabolism, for lack of a better word. So that's really exciting. Why people love Zepbound, and I'm sure I'd love to hear from you what you like the best, but I'm assuming Zepbound.
I love Zepbound. Yeah. Zepbound's my favorite. Yeah.
So why people like it? One, it's the most efficacious drug we have. So people can lose up to, on average, about 23% of their total body weight for those who are just doing it for weight loss. That's remarkable. That rivals bariatric surgery. And a lot of my patients will lose even more. So that's really kind of just even average. And then because of the second hormone, we're able to go up on higher doses with less side effect. So people just generally feel more like themselves. Sometimes people ask me to transfer back to Wegovy. They liked it because they actually liked the way kind of it made them feel. It really gave them like a stop. They liked a little bit of the nausea. I know that sounds crazy, but some brains like it. They're like, yeah, I really don't I want to feel some of the side effects. People generally feel pretty good on Zepbound.
Okay, I'm going to say Zepbound's been the best. I've tried the compounded, so listen up because I've done all of them. Zepbound I like the best. I've always stayed on 5. And I know that sounds weird, but I do the first day. So it goes for listeners, it goes like, you can talk about this too, but it goes in like 2.5 is the beginning dose. And that's just loading your body. I'm not a doctor, but I feel like I could be at this point. And then I go to the 5 and then 7.5, and then you can go upwards. The reason why I've stayed at 5, and this is just me, is because on dosing day, like the day that I give myself the shot, I always do kind of feel like poo. Like I feel nauseous. And I did my dose today. And I'm going to do a plug about that really quickly is I take look at this in the new bag. I take my electrolytes, which are the SoWell electrolytes, and they honestly, it tastes really good. And I just stick it in sparkling water and I drink it and it helps with the nausea. And so I'm going to say, I would love your input on is it okay for me to just stay on the 5?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
So this is where it gets confusing because there are different protocols for all of the medications. And the majority of people who start Wegovy do need to go up to the full dose. It really, in order for long-term weight loss, even if you start on the lower doses, eventually have to go up. But with Zepbound, it's a little different. And so actually even it's normal to stay at the 5. So we'd have these small titrations so that you can feel well in the in-between doses. But technically that drug is approved at the 5, 10, and the 15 milligram dose for weight loss. And so I love to keep people at the lower doses as long as they're doing well. So whether that means they're still losing weight slowly or they're in maintenance, that might be their maintenance dose. But also, if you're feeling sick like you are, you still have some of the feeling of unwell, then it's probably not time to go up on the next dose yet because this drug still really has a powerful effect on you. So that's a mistake that I actually see a lot of doctors who don't know better make. They'll just write all of the prescriptions out for patients and then they're every month fill a new one. And people are just miserable because really in my practice, I don't even give a refill on a dose. I'm just like, okay, at the end of the month, email me and tell me if we're going to go up or not. Like, tell me how you're doing. And I give like everybody the parameters. So staying nice and low is awesome. Like, that's just great if you're doing well there.
If I, again, I'm asking for myself, it's my podcast, so I'm just going to use myself. If I stay at the 5, which we're going to talk about right now, the berberine and like the maintenance stuff, because I did gain back a couple of pounds. I was off it. But my goal, and we talked about this last episode, is I will probably stay on this for my life. Like I just plan on it. I've just seen so much improvement. I don't feel great on dosing day. Who knows? Maybe I'll go back down at some point, and I don't know what my future holds. But I do know when I've gone off the drugs, so I want my listeners to know this, I always put the weight back on. And so I think you talked about how it's more dangerous for your body to yo-yo and lose and gain weight than the myth of being on these drugs forever. It's kind of like, why would you go off of a like say you had arthritis or you had something wrong with your knee? Why would you all of a sudden go, oh, my knee feels better, I guess I don't need the medicine anymore? It's the same thing, right?
Right. I think people really relate when I use the example of hypothyroidism. So if you have a thyroid that needs hormone medication, Synthroid, to feel well and to operate where your body should, once we start you on it, we really can't take you off of it 99% of the time. And it's the same thing with this hormone. If your body is no longer responding to its own hormone levels, and then it does respond to a synthetic version, we are going to need to keep the vast majority of people on this medication. There are a couple of people who can come off, but for people who see these systemic improvements, improved mood, decreased desire to drink wine, improved cholesterol markers, you are going to have to stay on the medication to see it, even if we took you off and you were able to maintain your weight. But it becomes very, very hard because every time that we lose weight, people will use this as a fear mongering. They might even like cut this and be like, see, she said so. But every time we lose weight, we lower our basal metabolic rate because we have less body to feed. And that's why it's actually really, really important that we keep up eating when we're on these drugs. People think it's such a miracle. They're like, I don't feel any hunger. And I'm like, no, you have to eat because we don't want your body to become accustomed to just no calories because it will adapt. It's a creature we are made to survive. And so we'll come up with like workarounds. So if you stop eating, our body will just be like, oh, okay, I'm just made to exist on 400 calories a day now. And you don't want to do that. But every time we do lose weight, we do lower our basal metabolic rate. And every time we lose weight, we do lose some muscle. And that's another tool that they will fear monger you about is that, oh, but you're wasting your muscle. No, every time you lose weight, you're going to lose fat and muscle. And our goal is to get people into the gym building muscle so that you maintain or improve your body fat composition. And actually, tirzepatide, Zepbound, has improved body composition metrics as compared to just calorie restriction alone. So there's actually protection against losing. And the newer drugs in the pipeline are going to be muscle sparing. So that's going to be pretty cool because you're just really going to target fat.
I want to talk about that for sure. But what I want to add to what you just said, part of why I stay on the dose that I stay on is because I do have an appetite. So if you're listening right now, I eat a regular diet. I try to keep my protein up because that's huge. I am an aging lady. I do love your protein powder. I put it in it's a vanilla flavored. So you know how if you're listening, listeners, you get these protein powders and you might be at the grocery store and they sell them and they just taste like chalky and gross. And kind of if you're on these first day, especially like I said, you might feel a little icky. I love this because it really does taste good. Kind of tastes like vanilla frosting. I don't know. And then I put it in because I don't have dairy or I limit my dairy. I just put it in like a little thing of oat milk and just drink it like that. Or I drink it. You can even drink it in water. It's super good. But I was going to say, I don't want, like, you'll see people that go on these drugs and I feel like they go up too fast on dosing. And once you get to a certain age, if you lose a lot of weight really quickly, like it will go to your face or you will lose your hair.
Yeah.
I've been on these. Okay, am I wrong? Because I'm not losing my hair because I take all of this stuff.
Yes. Okay. And you're so kind. And we are not paying you to say this. Thank you.
No, I'm being honest, you guys. I feel like I try to be really honest with my listeners about what if I have somebody come on multiple times that I probably like them and believe in what they do.
Thank you. Yeah. And we built all these products. Like we really went from the ground up in R&D, and I knew what my users needed. And they were telling me like, this tastes everything you're recommending tastes disgusting because your taste buds genetically change. So you need like a real flavor profile. But hair. So yes. So you don't want to lose more than about 1% of total body weight per week. For some, it can be a little more. If you have a lot of weight to lose, it can be a little higher at the beginning, but you got to control it and you got to make sure you're eating. And if you're not eating, you have to go down on your dose. And I'm going to circle back to microdosing in a second, because sometimes if you really can't tolerate even the starting dose, that's when it's appropriate to go down to even a lower dose. The hair thing, the vast majority of people, actually everyone, you at some point had hair loss. So the same thing that happens in pregnancy happens when you lose weight, which is called telogen effluvium. So remember, like, pregnancy hair is like gorgeous. And then like 6 months later, all of your hair falls out and it's like devastating because you're like exhausted.
Yeah. And it was like always like right there. And you're like, I remember.
I'm still drawing it back.
Yeah.
So the same exact phenomena happens when you're losing weight. So your body at the beginning of weight loss kind of feels like it's under threat, just like pregnancy. And it's like, well, wait, I should hold on to what I have because you're like losing weight. What's going on? And then once about 40 pounds down or about 6 months into a weight loss journey, your hair will shed in that one big fell swoop. And people just think they're panicking. Like they panic. They're like, oh my God, I'm dying. Everyone freaks out, even though I tell all my patients this is going to happen. And it grows back. But you will support hair growth if you are getting in enough protein, and you'll minimize shedding that's extra. If, maybe in your scenario, it was kind of like start and stop over 3 years, maybe it was just a little less dramatic, but it's normal. And I tell my patients, especially in midlife, if they're going through menopause, it might be like the perfect trifecta that your hair was naturally thinning due to hormones. And so if you feel like it's not regrowing in the way that you anticipated, that's a great time to go to a dermatologist, talk about oral minoxidil or even topical, and kind of aid the hair regrowth phase.
Can I just say, reach out to me, listeners, because I found a shampoo. I don't know. That's why I'm not saying it right now, because it's in my shower and I'm not going to leave and come back. But it actually has helped. I shouldn't say I never went through a stage where I was like, oh, wait a minute, I'm losing hair. I'm in like perimenopause. Like as women, you age, you lose hair. I mean, I'm thankful that I still have pretty good hair at my age. I did lose it, but it wasn't like, they say you're going to basically lose all your hair unless I feel like you're not getting the proper nutrition like we talked about, and you lose it really quickly, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. You got to eat. My mantra is about 30. If you're not going to count and kind of calculate it out, about 30 grams of protein per meal 3 times a day. And that's sufficient for most people. You might have higher needs. You might have a little less, but you've got to eat. Like you have to eat, even though it's such a gift to not constantly be thinking about food. And so some people,
it's the best.
It really is. And some people are just like, it's so freeing. I don't want to think about food. I'm like, you got to think about food still. Like you got to eat.
Yeah. And you want to have that hunger. Like I love to eat. I'm Irish and Italian. Like in my family growing up, it's all about going to a restaurant and not eating. Like I love to go to restaurants and eat. So I feel like if you get in that little area where you just don't feel sick and you can eat, that's why I do what I do. Okay. So I want to take a quick turn into, I was like 5 pounds away and I'll say 10 more to go. Okay. So I'm very close to where I would like to be. Maybe I'll want to keep going. I don't know. But you came out with this new berberine product, okay? And a lot of people talk about, oh, I don't want to be on the shots. The shots are about all the things we talked about. But then berberine is this new thing that everyone's like, oh, are you on berberine? Berberine is So tell me about why berberine. Also, I haven't started this yet because I wanted to talk to you about it before I started it. A lot of people say it causes really bad GI issues. So they're running to the bathroom. But I know your product's a little bit different because you put cinnamon. I can't remember what the things. So talk a little bit about why berberine. Go ahead.
Yes. So actually, this was one of my first products in my business years ago, because not everyone can always have access to GLP-1s or wants GLP-1s or even wants a medication, because we're not even talking about the other anti-obesity medicine tools that I have in my medical practice. We've got other stuff. And so some people are like, I do not want an injection. Like, if you still are curious, go talk to a doctor like me, because we have other things. But not everyone wants that. And some people are just supplement people, and they like the idea of healing things a little bit more naturally. And I think in the traditional medical system, we're so focused on medicines, and I wrote a whole book about medicines. Like, I'm a believer in them too, but I also want to meet people where they are. And I think it's silly to ignore a whole other side of medicine, really Eastern medicine, using herbs and supplements that can help you, because medicines come from these same derivatives. And so berberine is really interesting because it has a big impact on metabolic pathways. And so on lipid pathways, it can improve LDL. So the bad cholesterol will bring down, and triglycerides it can bring down, and it can improve your good cholesterol a little bit. And it lowers blood sugar. And then in turn, that leads to weight loss. And so these can be very helpful for people who are like, I'm just hungry. I'm thinking about food all the time, but I don't even know if I have that much weight to lose, but my biomarkers aren't looking great, or I need a little bit of just a bolster. And I've found for years that this was a wonderful adjunct alone or to medication to kind of help people not go up to the next dose if they didn't want to, or to come down, whether cost, access, or just desire to come down. So the product I made, I took not only berberine, because I'm a big fan of like multitasking. Again, working mom of 4 here. I'm like, if I'm going to make a product, just like those electrolytes, you know why those electrolytes work for you? Because they also have B6 in them, and it's a therapeutic dose for anti-nausea. And so I'm like, I don't need you taking and buying all these things. And so for this product, we made it with berberine, cinnamon, and chromium, which all have similar benefits of lowering blood sugar and appetite. And so you put them together and they can be pretty powerful. Berberine has very similar properties in how it acts to a drug called metformin. Metformin is really tough on the stomach. It can be really tough on the stomach. Berberine is a little bit more gentle, but you still have to be smart about how you take it. And so I want people starting slow and let your body get adjusted to it. So if you're curious about this, take it with a meal first, and then do that for about 7 days. And if all is good, then you can start taking it twice a day with meals. All good? Okay. Now you take one of those doses and you take it before the meal or at the start of your day or whenever you're kind of the most hungry. So sometimes people really like to take it mid-afternoon too. They're like, I need something to stave off the munchies, and this works. My other tip for mid-afternoon hunger is fiber. So whether you take a fiber supplement like we have in our line, or just dump some chia seeds into water and drink it. This is actually like a TikTok hack. You're not going to lose all the weight in the world, but you drink it and then it like blows up in your stomach and it makes you feel full. Now, if you're really hungry and you need food, eat, please. But that is like a good hack. And supplements like this can also help you just make a dent in appetite and have these larger cardiometabolic improvements.
What if you're on a GLP-1 and you're like, so you're me, and I just took my dose today, right? And I've been off of it for 2 weeks. So I'm right back on. Can I take this?
Yeah.
Or should I wait?
So listen, party line here is you should always talk to your doctor, but yes, you can use them both together because these medications in combination don't lower blood sugar too much. And that's what we'd be worried about. So we're not worried there. you know what I would have told? Too bad that I wish I would have known you were going off your meds, because I would have had you take this in the interim, because you can take this leading up to colonoscopy. So any surgery planned, you'll have to go off your GLP-1 for at least 7 days. And that's when something like this can become super helpful too, because it's a nice bridge. And so for people who are coming off for like that reason, or coming down, or just like, hey, I stalled and I don't want to go up to the next dose. It's more expensive to go up. I want to stay at the lower dose. Then we'll add in something like this, and you could take them both together.
So maybe like if I decide to take, I'll just be on the shot for today, and maybe I'll try it like tomorrow, like you just said. Okay. My next thing, I know I'm shooting so many questions at you, so I'm sorry, but I could talk about this for hours. I want to know where this drug is going, because you said that there's a lot of new stuff coming out. I'm going to be honest. The shots, I give myself the shot. It does not bother me at all. It doesn't even hurt. I do them on my leg. Some people say do it on I've never done it on my stomach. I feel like my leg is my place, and I squeeze my fat and I just on my thigh, and I just give myself my dose, because I have noticed the nausea is worse when I've done my stomach. I don't know if that's a myth, but it's me. So can you talk about that?
I can't explain why that's true, but so many of my patients tell me that. Like that is, it has to be real, and I can't explain the science, because it should all be the same, but it's not.
Okay. It's so strange. So I always do my leg, and I don't like, just for my listeners, I haven't like had issues where TV scares you. And I had a friend that was putting off being on these drugs and really had a lot of weight to lose. And I just kept being like, I mean, it's somebody else's decision, but I just feel like, why not? You know, like, is it better to be walking around, you know, this person was at least 100 pounds overweight with all kinds of health issues, or really just trying them? And that's why I'm so passionate about this, is because this drug has changed my life, like thankfully for the better. And I would like all of you that might be listening to know that don't, you know, people will be like, I lost my gallbladder. Yeah, there's things that can happen with anything, but I wanted to ask also, and I know I'm all over the place today, but it's because I'm really happy about this. The blood test. So how often should I be getting a blood test on these drugs?
You should get them at the beginning. So many of the asynchronous platforms where you can get these drugs, they don't draw labs. And the amazing thing about these drugs is they're very safe. So there's nothing we need to check to necessarily start you on them. But if we don't check your labs, we're missing high blood sugars, we're missing metabolic syndrome, we're missing fat in your liver, we're missing vitamin deficiencies. We're missing thyroid abnormalities. So please get your labs checked. And then I like to check your weight when it gets to about 40 pounds down, or about 6 months. Sometimes sooner, at 3, I'll need to do it if there's something that I found abnormal at the beginning. And it's really it's nice for you to see your improvements. It's super motivating to see improvements in labs. One thing I will tell you though, as we lose weight, sometimes, this is rare, but cholesterol can actually go up if you're still in the acute weight loss period. And don't panic about that. Like, as we're losing weight, we release kind of fat breaks down, and cholesterol pathways are kind of taxed, and LDL will temporarily go up. It's going to get better when you check it again in 6 months.
Well, I'm also, for my listeners out there too, I'm also on HRT. So I just think, if you are walking around right now, like me, like 3 years ago, where I was at my heaviest and my hormones there's so many women and we are living in such an awesome time where we can talk about this stuff finally, right? And be like, why don't we talk about like perimenopause? Why did nobody tell me that I was going to be screaming and mad all the time, or I was going to have fibroids, or I was going to gain all this weight? I would love to know your thoughts on the combination of the two together, because I know that that's a big topic right now.
Yeah. Okay. So I just learned this stat. I was shocked because I thought it would have been better. But less than 3% of people who qualify for GLP-1s are offered them. And it's about the same number, about 4% for women in menopause who qualify for HRT are offered HRT. There is so much overlap between these spaces, even if your feed is filled with people talking about it, because it's got a lot of noise behind it, but it still doesn't have wide adoption. There is so much stigma. And that stat where I said it takes medicine a long time to adopt what we know to be true. Unfortunately, when in the case of HRT, the Women's Health Initiative study, that it was interpreted poorly. And around the time I was in medical school, we just stopped prescribing HRT, and now it's coming back in. But if you talk to your doctor about it, the vast majority of people will be like, oh no, I don't do that. It's going to give you cancer.
Well, you said in the beginning, I think you said something like, a lot of doctors don't do the additional schooling, right?
Yeah.
So if you go to a gynecologist, and I'm not like
it's
knocking,
not shade. No,
it's not shade. It's just like my hormone doctor, shout out Dr. Shaw, she's a urogynecologist.
Yeah.
So she's done additional schooling. So she understands, there's so much shame about hormones and HRT because they didn't put the research, and like if we were men, the blue pill has been around for however long, but because we're women and we're aging and we're kind of like pushed out, I think that
and it's
has
just the
something
same
to do
idea
with
that
it.
you should suffer. For me, it's the same as this field of weight management, like something you did something wrong, and like my mom didn't suffer, so clearly it's in your head, or like you're not working hard enough, or you're doing something wrong. The beautiful thing now about treating people with these medications is that we are lifting a lot of the shame stigma, and we're improving future disease, because as estrogen declines, one of the reasons that weight comes on in midlife is that as estrogen declines, we start to put on fat, not just weight gain, but we put it on in visceral and like in the stomach area. That just leads to more insulin resistance, which leads to more weight gain. So we get gaslit a lot because population studies will say, oh, it's just about a pound a year in menopause. Well, one, menopause can last 10 plus years, and two, it's a lot more than that. Usually it's about 1 to 3 pounds, with most putting on closer to the 3 pounds a year. So then it ends up looking like 30 pounds. And so then you have increased risk of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, kidney disease, peripheral vascular disease, all this stuff. So the great news about dual treatment is we are starting to see early signs of research that combining HRT plus GLP-1s leads to significantly more weight loss than just GLP-1s alone. And that has to do with the fact that there's probably a synergy in how GLP-1s work on estrogen pathways. And so when you replace, it's more efficacious. But people just feel better. So then like you can get a good night's sleep, and then you don't wake up just insane. And then you might get to the gym. And for a long time, people were just blaming the weight gain of menopause just on changes like lack of sleep. And I'm not trying to put it there, but if you can improve it, you just feel better. You're able to make more muscle. You're able to keep up your metabolism. You just feel more like yourself. So I'm a big fan of, if you need treatment in either area, seek treatment in either area. But we shouldn't just be slapping HRT on everybody who needs, like, who potentially qualifies unless they have symptoms. Same thing with GLP-1s. Now, this is where I think some of the influencer culture makes it seem like everybody needs all the things. And no, it's really unique to you. And if you need it and you're having symptoms, then get treated.
And it's not like one size fits all. Like you're talking to somebody that was forced to have a hysterectomy. So I have to personally be on it. But for me, I'm just saying my own experience, these drugs for me have been life-changing. And also my husband kind of likes me again, because I became like a raving lunatic with all the hormones and, the weight gain. Like you feel bad about yourself as a woman, we're so hard on ourselves. And I think back to when I was young in high school, and I had such a nice figure, and we were just taught to just put ourselves down so much. So part of why I love the GLP-1s is to be the age that I am, 104, and to be like, you know what? Like, I look kind of good right now. And I know that that's so obnoxious to say, but I'm getting older and I feel good about myself again. And that's pretty awesome. So I'm going to say that. My last question, or one of my last, we'll see. Can you tell me why in God's name these drugs are so expensive. We talked about it last time, but it's not getting any better. Is there a light at the end of the tunnel?
They are slightly getting better. They're getting better slightly since I talked to you last. They're still very expensive, about $500 a month, but that's a lot less than the average of $1,200 a month, which is what it was before. As we have new drugs come to market, we are going to have increased competition, and
they'll drop the price.
They're going to come down. We are getting closer to having some generics on the market too, and they're going to start probably up in Canada and come down. So that's great. So I am optimistic. The reason these drugs are so expensive is because our government doesn't get involved, and we are allowed to do this in this country. In every other country, there are mandates that there has to be a cap. So medical tourism is existing right now. I'm not advising it, but I have patients who are like, hey, I'm going to go visit family in India, and I'm going to come back with some Manjaro that only costs me $50 a month. That's a real problem. And I am advocating, and I'm working with our societies to help bring the costs down. There is a bill that got shelved. It got passed through with Biden, and then it got shelved kind of pretty immediately. It's called the Treat and Reduce Obesity Act. We need to keep working on this. So call your Congress people, tell them it's important for you to have fair drug pricing with these drugs, because we are going to have a world in which there's two classes of medicine. And I don't believe that to be fair, where, like some have access to it and some don't. And that's where we are right now. And I am hopeful that we can democratize and level the playing fields. What is probably going to be important is that Eli Lilly just has released direct vials. So Zepbound you can get in vials from their facility. It brings down the cost significantly because it's not in those fancy plastic pens, which are terrible for our environment anyway. It drives up the cost. So I really want people to just move over to the vials. And then we actually have an efficacious pill that will probably be coming to market. Pills have been tough because the medications, the way they're metabolized, are not as effective. But it looks like we have one coming to market sometime probably in the end of next year. When that happens, you'll be able to really up production, and it won't cost as much to make these drugs. So honestly, advocate. I mean, there's so much to call your Congress people about these days, but if it's important to you, I actually have over on my Instagram, Alexandra Sowa, MD, I have something like in my highlights where you can go fill out a form, connect, and just send a form letter, because we need to keep making noise, because these drugs, and why do I want people to keep making noise? Not to just get thin, right? This is about health. And if we are able to prevent the progression, the evolution of chronic disease, we will bring down costs in this country significantly. We'll improve the quality of our lives and our output. And it allows us room to make the necessary large-scale changes that will lead to future disease prevention, so that we aren't a world where all of our kids are just automatically on this drug the moment they pop out. I think that's a fear of mine when you're asking about the future. I'm worried that unless we change the ecosystem in which we live, there's a world where the chronic diseases just keep getting worse, even with these medications. And so we need to take the time to make these drugs more effective and change the way that we shop at the grocery store, change the way we work out at the gym, change the way that we, bike around our towns. This gives us breathing room to do that. I think it'll take away from our chronic disease that where we have to put all of our energy and time into, and let us reshift back to actual prevention, not just taking food dye out of something, actual, how do we make, produce, source, and feed our children healthy food?
I think you're so right. This is honestly my last question. Okay. I promise you. I hate myself right now that I do this all the time. Okay. So I've gone the route of compounded. Okay. Which I follow. I'm on TikTok. I follow a lot of influencers because I always like tricks. I like tips. I like to see what they're doing. But what makes me nervous is the compounded, which, by the way, I did not have a great experience with the compounded. I felt like it was watered down. I didn't lose any weight. And then it also makes me go, what is actually in this?
Yeah.
So but I see so many women and they're going to their med spa, or they're going to, I'm not going to name companies, but there are promoting these all over the place. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, technically it's illegal right now. So if you're getting access to compound, it's kind of fly by night because they shouldn't be doing it because these drugs are under patent and there was a temporary stay on it when we couldn't keep up with production and people needed access to it. But I never felt great about it because this is a very complicated drug to stabilize. And that's one of the reasons it is expensive. Even abroad, it's not pennies. Like it is still expensive. And the FDA really does hold these facilities to such high standards, and we know exactly what's in each batch. We just do. And we're not doing that at compounded pharmacies. Even my supplements are third-party tested and have higher testing rigor than compound. They're just not required. Now, some of them are amazing, and I love my compound facilities for when I use them for other products. But with this drug in particular, I just worry. I mean, my own TikTok is like, I block like 15 people a day who just comment on like some shady gray market, black market drugs, like, and trying to like recruit people from it is just wild. So be careful of where you're getting this. I'm not trying to give people Botox. So I have a real hard time with the med spas, just kind of having people who don't know anything about these medications dole them out.
Yeah.
We are looking at this for health. That's not health. Who's drawing your labs? Are you getting screened for sleep apnea? How are you being taught to eat, right? I mean, I cure disease with medication, but also food. So if you have insulin resistance, you're going to learn how to count a carbohydrate, and we're going to understand what's happening with your blood sugar, and we're going to be testing it, and you're going to be monitoring it. And so just take care of yourselves. Like, this is a great drug. We need to treat it with respect, and you need to treat your own bodies with respect. So it's expensive, but honestly, if you work with a doctor like me, there are ways to kind of hack get lower doses out of the medication. So you pay for one pen, you get lower doses, you can get the real med. I'd also say there's just a study came out that said people overpaid like $1 billion last year on weight loss meds just because a lot of these companies aren't running your prior authorization. They're not even trying to get you the real thing, and then they're just selling you kind of the knockoff or saying you have to pay cash price. Not all insurances cover these meds, but a fair amount do. And it takes work, and offices are stretched to the limit, or they just don't want to do the work. Like, I'm getting on the phone. My back office is doing the PAs, and then I'm appealing. So sometimes it's worth it to wait a little bit longer to work with a doctor who's like, this is just what they do.
And also I would say, go with your gut. Like, I always say that I'll say women in general, but men, whoever's on this, whatever your experience is, I like always go with my gut, and I'm like, I feel weird about this. And I've tried a couple of these compounded medications because I felt kind of desperate, like, oh, I couldn't get something approved in time, or I'm not approved for these. But to me, I just think it's so important that I need to be on them, that's my choice. And I'm fortunate enough to have that choice. So in closing, unless there's something else that I can think of, which I'm sure I'll bother you later today and ask you something, I would love to know where people can find you.
Yes.
And talk about your book too, please.
Oh, yes. So do go check out my book, The Ozempic Revolution. I think we're going into our 10th language print, which is really exciting. So it's not only here in the United States, but all over the world. And if you read it and like it, leave a review on Amazon because it helps more people find it. Find me on social. So I'm becoming more and more active on Instagram, Alexandra Sowa MD. I'm at the same handle on TikTok. And my company, you can find my company and my medical practice at getsowell.com. I'm so thrilled that you're talking about our products today because they are my baby, and I'm trying to create just a support space of education, of products, of love for people on these drugs so that they don't just exist on them, but they really thrive.
Well, I'll just say I'm a huge believer in what you do. I adore you. I think you're awesome. I follow you. I always am like, I love you. Like, I'm your super fan. And I really, really think your products are tasty, and they've helped me along my journey. So thank you again for coming on. It was such an honor to have you back. And everyone, keep going. You matter. Your story matters. Thank you.
Judging Meghan with Meghan Judge.